How's it going, my jungle critters? Hope everyone's had a good week so far. We're halfway through. We're nearly at that weekend. And I tell you what, the bloody weather here in Perth is getting awesome. We're like in spring at the moment, and it's just started to warm up nicely. I think we've got a 30-degree day tomorrow, that's in Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I don't know, 75 or something, 80. Google it. I don't know the conversion. I've had a good week so far. I've been hitting the gym pretty hard. I drank on Saturday night. I had a big drinking session, and I don't drink that often. Maybe once every few weeks. So I've been finding now when I have a big night, yeah, I feel it now. I mean, I don't get hungover, but I just feel so unmotivated for the next couple of days. Like, I won't go to the gym or anything. I just get super lazy. And that's what happened this time. So, Monday and Tuesday, I was hitting the gym, trying to get back into the routine of things. And now I'm going to bring you a really cool podcast episode. And the success from the call-ins that I've been doing, like people sending me voice clips and emails and things, a lot of people really loved it. So I'm just going to continue with that. And last week I got quite a lot. I could only fit a few into last week's episode. And this week I've got a whole new fresh batch for you. So if you have any cool topics you want me to talk about, any questions, any interesting animal stories that has happened to you or anyone you know, then send them in. I do prefer voice recordings, but you can send me it written down on email if you want to. And if you want to send a voice recording, you can do it over Instagram. You can DM me with a voice recording, and I'll just screenshot it and take the audio from it, or you can record it on your phone on the little voice recording app and just email it to me. Either way, whatever's easier. I will get that audio one way or the other. So I'm going to start it off this episode with an email I got. It wasn't a voice recording, but it was a really interesting email, and I have to talk about it. This is from Alyssa. And the email says, "Hello, you don't have to share this since I didn't send a voice message, but it's still interesting. My nephew was attacked by a grizzly bear in Wyoming a couple of years ago." And she sent the link to the news article. He had to shoot it to save his life. So unfortunately, this bear was killed during this process. And she says, "Sad part, and I don't fully understand, is we were told they had to find the two cubs and put them down because they witnessed the mother being killed." Okay, we'll get into that in a second, but I'm looking at the photos she sent me of her nephew, and good lord, they are pretty intense, hey? One of his arms just has these two giant bite marks out of it. Like, if you were to take a bite of an apple, that's what it looks like. And you can see all the muscles and everything. Like, they're big bloody holes in his arm. And his torso just has claw marks all over it. Some of them are like holes where the claws have gone in. Some are like scratches, but he's torn up. And then there's another photo of his face, and his face has blood all over it. Like, honestly, he was very lucky to survive this. And he's going to have some bloody good scars. If anything good comes out of this, it's the scars he's going to be left with. Like, damn, he might beat me. But regarding those cubs, so a bear's at its most dangerous when it's a sow, which is a female, with cubs. Female bears get fiercely protective over their cubs. And I'm not sure what the scenario was with this, whether or not he was bear hunting or what, but he obviously had a gun with him. And fortunately there's been human animal confrontation there, and the mother was shot and killed. But the reason why the cubs would have been killed is because they would not survive without the mum. The most, and as horrible as it sounds, the most humane thing to do with those cubs would be they destroy them. It is absolutely horrible. It sucks so damn bad. But those cubs would have died a very slow and prolonged death without the mother. They would have starved to death, or succumbed to the environment or predators, because larger, things like coyotes and wolves will predate on bear cubs, and also other bears will as well. And they're not going to rescue the cubs, because then the cubs will be raised in captivity and habituated to people, and it's a lot to deal with. So that would be why the officers would have killed them cubs. And how to prevent a bear attack? Like, there's lots of different scenarios that come into play. I mean, the whole playing dead thing works depending on the circumstances. And the circumstances with this grizzly bear attack, with this female and her cubs, um, playing dead probably would have been the best option there, because that bear doesn't necessarily want to eat you. She just wants to dispatch of you so you're not a threat to the cubs. So if she attacks you and you play dead, job done. Cubs are protected. She can move on. Now, during that attack, you playing dead, that could lead to life-threatening injuries. Like, this guy was messed up pretty damn bad. If it's a bear that wants to eat you, then playing dead isn't the best option, because you're just an easier meal for it. In that case, you do have to fight back. You do have to yell at it. You do have to try and make yourself as big as possible. I mean, it's hard when grizzly bears can be 10 feet bloody tall, 800 pounds plus in some circumstances. So then, even trying to outrun a bear is hard. They can run 30 miles an hour, So your best option is to just try and prevent any confrontation with a bear. And that's when you walk in the woods. Some people sing loudly, so you don't surprise a bear. If you surprise a bear, it is, it could be inclined to attack. People, so do the whole yo bear, yo bear, yo bear, make a lot of noise. Try and just let the bear know that you're in the area. Yeah, it sucks that because one bear died, all of them died. The cubs and everything. It sucks, but yeah, it happens. You just got to try and prevent it best you can. Okay, on to our next voice recording. This is from Nuva.
Hey mate, well, I have an interesting story. I've been working with primates since a long time ago, and one of the best experiences that I had was working with bonobos in RDC in Congo. So after maybe 6 months working with them, I was following one female. Her name is Rita, and she was hanging out a lot with the dominant male. His name is Dango. So when in the following, they start playing, just chasing each other. And then at some point, the female Rita just lie down on her back, open her legs, and this, as in chimpanzees, bonobos also has this. Female bonobo has this swelling, and they have the clitoris out. So she was lying down, open her legs, and then the male Dango just grabbed the swelling and with the thumb started stimulating the clitoris of Rita. Basically, he was masturbating Rita. So it was really interesting because they spent doing that maybe, I don't know for how long, maybe 10 minutes. And then she was really happy. They have this kind of laughing sound that is like, ah, 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 and she was doing that. She was really enjoying it. I can tell. Um, and they just spent like that 10 minutes. I was shocked to see this scene. But yeah, I don't know. There you go. They have this interesting story that I have the image of both of them doing that for a long time. But yeah, if you want to have plenty stories about primates, elephants, stories in the forest. But yeah, there you go. This is the first one that just came to my mind.
Okay. Oh, I'm sure she was happy about that. Jesus. And working with bonobos, I'm sure that's not the only story he has about those apes sexually stimulating one another. Um, so yeah, the male performed oral sex on the female. Yeah, that sounds like bonobos. For those that don't know what a bonobo is, it's a species that is in the same genus as chimpanzees in the pan genus. So chimpanzees is Pan troglodytes, bonobos is Pan peniscus. Basically, they look kind of similar to a chimpanzee. They're a bit more gracile, so they're a bit more thinner, lightly built. They have darker faces and sort of like pink lips. They pretty much look like an Australopithecus, which is a relic hominin, one of like the first hominins in the human lineage. They look like how you would picture what a human evolved from, and I think actually now scientists are using bonobos as ancestral models rather than chimpanzees now. But bonobos are different to chimpanzees. They split from the chimpanzee species or common ancestor with chimpanzee like 900,000 years ago. So the Congo River, while that was being formed, kind of isolated uh, a group, and isolation leads to speciation. So they eventually turned into a separate species. For a long time, they thought chimpanzees and bonobos were both the same species. I think they were even called pygmy chimpanzees at one point. But their societies run very differently to chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are male dominated, whereas bonobos are female dominated. You will still get dominant males, but it's the females that kind of form stronger coalitions amongst each other and sort of make the rules and the decisions and stuff. And in chimpanzees, it's the male that leaves and goes into other groups. In bonobos, it's the females. So they work very differently. They're a lot more peaceful than chimpanzees. They don't really have wars with one another. They can still show acts of aggression and stuff like that, but in a whole, they're a bit more placid than their fellow chimpanzee. And this also involves a lot of sexual activity, and not for reproduction. It's more of just a social thing. Like they will participate in orgies. They will regularly sexually stimulate one another. And we're not just talking about male and females. We're talking about female on female, male on male, several males on males, or females on females. Like, it's whether or not it's for pleasure, for sex, I'm sure it plays a big part in it, but it's also a social thing like greetings, or if one needs cheering up, or kind of like a handshake. We've all seen allo grooming amongst chimpanzees, and that happens amongst bonobos, but they'll also go up and give the other one a wristy. Like, very sexually precocious apes. If you look at chimpanzees as like, the warriors and things like that. Then bonobos are kind of like the hippies, I guess. But that's not to say that there aren't conflicts between bonobos, but just far less than there is with chimpanzees. And yeah, I think if you're having that much sex, like you're probably going to be a bit more placid. Um, so what he was saying about like the sexual swelling, it's you would have seen photos of it. Uh, Certain primates, especially ones that live in big groups that aren't monogamous, the females will show sexual swelling to tell the male that she's sort of ready for mating. And yeah, so that male's obviously come up and yeah, pried open that sexual swelling and played some, performed oral sex on her, and she seemed pretty happy about it. I mean, hey, any bloke doing that for 10 minutes, without getting a sore neck, hats off to you, mate. Yeah, he's a keeper. But yeah, that is a really cool story, man. And like, please send me some more. You said you've got some more about primates, and you know me, I love primates, and the more I study and read up about primates, they just blow my mind. And by the sounds of it, bonobos, they blow each other as well. Oh god, sorry, I had to do it. Yeah, keep them coming, man. That was awesome, and I'm jealous of you getting to work with bonobos. I would love to. As much as I'd love to see wild chimpanzees, I think bonobos I'd love to see more, just because they are just so different. They're so weird, and they're vastly more understudied than chimpanzees as well. And I actually recently just finished reading a bonobo book by Frans de Waal, a real famous primatologist. So yeah, thank you so much for that very interesting and erotic story. Keep them coming, mate. Because I know the bonobos will keep... Sorry. Alright, I'm going to stop now. Okay, next. Voice recording. Let's have a listen.
Hi Adam, my name's Leahi from the United States, and I would love to hear your opinion on exotic pets. I feel like I've noticed a huge increase of people on TikTok, Instagram, all the social medias showing off their exotic animals. And I've noticed more and more comments of people asking how they themselves can go about getting these kind of pets, even if they might not have the proper knowledge or training or facility to house the animal. So just what your opinion is on this growing trend overall, anything you would say to someone who's looking to get this kind of pet, and any warnings you would give to people. Thanks.
That's a really, really good question. And it's going to be a pretty complicated answer as well, because there's so many different scenarios where, yes, exotic animals can make good pets depending on the animal, and there are some exotic animals that just should not be kept in captivity. A lot of the animals that are being sold now most of them have been bred in captivity through generations and generations. I mean, not domesticated by any means. They haven't had thousands of years of domestication like our dogs and cats. But we're talking generations and generations. Like if you're looking at a ball python, for example, that's an exotic animal, and it's been bred in captivity for a long, long time. And I know there's still poachers taking them out of the wild because they might find one that has cool markings and they want those genetics or something, but that happens very, very rarely. And it's still an exotic animal, and I would say that a ball python would make a great pet. That's only if you know how to take care of it and look after it. You know, you have the right husbandry, you have the right enclosure for it. Never buy an exotic animal that you haven't researched or learn anything about. It's not as simple as just bunging one in an aquarium, you know? I have seen a lot of people these days getting, pets like sugar gliders, kinkajous, things like that. And I don't know how long they've been bred in captivity for, whether or not they're still taking stock from the wild, which isn't necessarily a problem unless their population is diminishing because of it. But in saying that, it's always better to breed these things in captivity and use that stock. And after a while, after they've been bred in captivity so long, I mean, these animals don't know what the wild is anymore because they've been bred for so long in captivity. Heaps of these exotics. And if you were to release one into the wild, there's no way it would survive. People say, instincts would kick in. It's like, well, no, not necessarily. For example, in Australia, we're not allowed to keep exotic reptiles. We can only keep natives. I've got a southwest carpet python. And you can find them around here. I have been feeding it rats for so long that when I introduced it to a quail, it wouldn't eat it. It didn't know what it was. So you would think maybe instincts would kick in and go, okay, that's food, because they will absolutely eat birds, ducklings, things like that. But this snake has been in captivity for so long, it just doesn't know. So if I was to release it, barring it finds a rat and can just live off them, it would probably be very confused as to what to eat. And that begs the question, like, are zoos good or bad? And it depends. It depends on the zoo. Some zoos are great. Our zoo here in Perth was the sole reason why the Western Swamp, they say Western Swamp tortoise, it's a turtle. There was only like 32 of them left or something in the wild, and now there's hundreds of them. And that's solely because of our zoo's breeding programs. So zoos definitely have a place, but it just depends on how you treat the animals and what the enclosures are like, because they don't... I mean, it is so rare that they'll take an animal out of the zoo now for captivity. They're bred in captivity, the majority of them. My only issues are cetaceans in captivity, like dolphins, orcas, pilot whales. I don't think that should be the case. I don't think cetaceans should be kept in captivity, especially like the delphinidae, like the orcas and the dolphins. I mean, orcas are such social animals living in these massive pods, and some killer whales migrate, the transient ones, they migrate for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And to have one in a pool is kind of like, there's something wrong about that. And animals like primates being kept in captivity, I don't think there is any private household that would be enough for a primate, especially like a monkey and an ape, like not a chance. But a lot of people keep squirrel monkeys and capuchin monkeys. Capuchin monkeys, especially the males, they can get very, very boisterous. And once they get to a certain age, they can turn pretty aggressive. Because in the wild, capuchin monkeys, their groups are male dominated and they want to be the alpha. And that can happen in captivity. And the amount of time you need to spend with these primates, it's basically a full-time job. It's like having a baby that can swing from your curtains, run around the place, bite you very hard if it wanted to. And you've just got to... It's a full-time job. And apes are just on the next level. People keeping chimpanzees in a house is just absolutely insane. Like, yeah, they're cute when they're babies, but when they grow up and weigh, especially the males, 180 pounds plus, then they start wanting to be a be a big male chimpanzee. And having the strength I know people say they're like 7 times stronger than humans, but they're probably not that much, but at least 2.5 times stronger, absolutely. And it's not a good combination. There is no house that can house an ape uh, like it should. So with monkeys and apes, personally, I don't think they should be kept privately by people. Your big cats, same deal. Like, unless you have an amazing facility for them, then yeah. See, big cats are a weird one. Like, I know the gene bank, like having captive tigers if we ever need them for the wild again, is a good idea. But there are so many tigers that are like inbred, or they're a mixture of Bengal tiger and Siberian tiger and Indo-Chinese tiger. So the genes are muddy. That's if they're not inbred. So you probably would never be able to breed them for release into the wild. But like, I mean, I think there's more tigers in Texas than there is in the wild, which is insane. That's absolutely crazy. They're privately owned tigers as well. But big cats in zoos, for example, I hear it time and time again. People go, "Oh, it needs to be free and wild and running around." They have massive territories, which they do. But I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I don't really feel strongly either way, because the circumstances are so, like, they're just so, the line is so thin. Do we actually know that these tigers want to be running around for miles hunting? Do we? We don't know. It's very stressful for a tiger to have to hunt every other day, and especially hunting big game that can kick you, that can impale you with horns. And if something like that happens, you get a broken bone in your foot or an impalement somewhere, there's a good chance that that animal will die, right? So being in a enclosure that is big, like, you know, a good size enclosure for it, where it's not pacing up and down from boredom, where it has a lot of enrichment and gets its food brought to it, how do you know that that tiger doesn't actually like that? You know, and these are tigers that have never been in the wild, mind you. And I'm by no means saying that tigers prefer to be in captivity than in the wild. No, these are cats that have always been in captivity and don't know the wild. I would never say take a big cat out of the wild and put it in captivity. No, not a chance. I'm just saying that a captive cat, that's all it knows. How do we know that it would, if it was released, it would prefer that? You know, having never done it before, never hunted, never had to deal with being gored or, you know, being injured during a hunt. I don't know. Maybe they don't mind it. Okay, but you do see videos of tigers and lions just pacing up and down just from sheer boredom, and that's absolutely horrible. I think if a big cat should be in captivity, it needs a bloody good enclosure. If you're gonna have this thing in captivity, I mean, you're not gonna rewild it, but if you have in captivity, it needs a massive enclosure. It needs daily stimulation, not bonobo style stimulation, although I'm sure it wouldn't complain. It needs enrichment, something to keep its mind busy as well as physically. So it's a very complicated issue, keeping exotics as pets, because everything's exotic until it's been kept in captivity long enough, right? I mean, even dogs are exotic to a certain degree. Dogs aren't natively found in most countries. So yeah, like, I could probably do a whole episode on this issue. But my stance on it is, if you're going to keep an exotic animal, steer clear of primates. but just make bloody sure that you look after that thing properly. All right, you've got good, and you've researched a lot as well. You need to know a lot about these animals before you keep them. Just make sure that they are as happy as you can get them. Oh, gee. Thanks for that question, and I mean, I'm sorry if that was a confusing answer, but yeah, I'm in two minds about it, depending on the situation. So, thanks for that recording, and if you have any more, send them through. Cheers. Okay, our last recording of the day is from David. Take it away, David. Davo.
Hey Adam, my name's David. I'm from the Philippines, and I've been very into drawing dinosaurs and reading about dinosaurs lately. So I was wondering, what animals alive today do you think are the most like the prehistoric creatures of our past? And I was wondering if you could give me an example for both terrestrial animals and aquatic animals. And no, you cannot say the coelacanth for aquatic, because I guess that's a little bit obvious. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day.
That's a really cool question, David. I also like to draw dinosaurs. I'm no good at it. You would probably be a lot better than me. In fact, a toddler's probably a lot better than me, but hey, don't stop me from trying. Yeah, so the animals that we have now that are most like dinosaurs, I mean, a very obvious answer is birds, because birds are dinosaurs. They are avian dinosaurs. They are direct descendants from theropods, which are, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the raptors. In fact, most of the raptors, if not all of them, to some degree were feathered. And if you were to see let's say a velociraptor, 75 million years ago, you probably wouldn't say, well, look at that weird lizard that walks around on two legs. You would say, look at that weird looking bird. I mean, Jurassic Park kind of had this misconception that the dinosaurs were like all skin, scales, and shrink wrapped, that look on them, but no, they actually looked much different to that. And birds aren't just like descendants of dinosaurs, they are dinosaurs. And they come from a clade, or a superclade called archosaurs. And crocodilians and birds are the last surviving archosaurs. And I mean, crocodilians, I think the first order that appeared, I think it was like 450 million years ago. I think it was called Pseudotsucha or something. And that was like the precursor to Crocodilia, the Crocodilia order. And they were, animals like the Deinosuchus or the Sarcosuchus, which were gigantic crocodiles. The Sarcosuchus resembled like a massive gharial. The Deinosuchus was like a huge alligator-looking thing. And that lineage, that clade still exists. And same with birds. Birds have actually been around since the time of dinosaurs. And so have mammals, actually. There were mammals knocking about during the dinosaur time. Absolutely there was. Hundreds of millions of years, and mammals or mammal-like animals existed. In fact, the clade Euryconta emerged like 86 million years ago, and that gave rise to like tree shrews and colugos, which are like the flying lemurs, which eventually speciated into primates 75 million years ago. So I know that's not really your question, but I'm just saying that like mammals have been around since the time of dinosaurs, late Cretaceous. And birds are dinosaurs. Now, if we're going into marine animals, I know you've put the kibosh on the coelacanth, but there are a lot of other like lobe-finned fish. I mean, you look at the lungfish, that actually is the closest living relative of the tetrapods. And tetrapods are mammals, amphibians, reptiles, birds are also tetrapods. And that is like the lineage that evolved from fish. I mean, there's always the argument that humans are technically fish because we all evolved from fish-like ancestor. But the lungfish is the most directly related to like the original tetrapod, or what came out of tetrapods. And the lungfish is, that has been around for like 400 million years, virtually unchanged. Speciated, yes, but physically they look very similar. Same as a coelacanth. No animal stops evolving. Okay, you can say, sharks have been around for, 400 million years. But no, great white sharks haven't been around for 400 million years. Carcharodon carcharis as a species hasn't been around for 400 million years. That, I think, sort of started... I think it split from the last common ancestor of the mako shark, like maybe 45 million years ago. Something like that. But that lineage of cartilaginous fish has been around for a hell of a long time. So if you want to see basically what living dinosaurs are, or living prehistoric animals, look at lungfish, look at birds, look at crocodilians. Because if you were to go back in time, they would look very similar, eerily similar. And, you always look at the megalodon. And these days, they used to think that the great white shark was another in the same genus as megalodon, but they've actually changed that genus. So I think they think megalodon looked more like a big tiger shark or something rather than a giant great white shark. But yeah, I hope this answers some of your questions. I know I get carried away with myself and make it way more confusing than it actually is. But I just think a lot of people don't realize that if you're looking at a bird, you're looking at an avian dinosaur. And I think that's really, really cool. And yeah, look at the lungfish as well. I mean, just looking at it, it looks bloody prehistoric. It looks in between a reptile and a fish. Just the scales, and also has limbs where it can kind of walk. I mean, they just like these little bits of tentacle things sticking out, but they just look prehistoric. And that group of animals, which are the lungfish, they're the closest living relative to like where we evolved from a long time ago. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, man. And that concludes this episode of Thorn's Jungle. I figured this episode we'll do just listener questions and topics. And I mean, I'm loving answering them, to be honest. So if you have a question, topic, interesting story, send it to me. Doesn't matter what it is. Just send it to me, and I'd love to talk about it. And yeah, if you haven't already, please subscribe and rate the podcast, preferably 5 stars, please. I'll be your friend. And I'll see you next week on another episode of Thorn's Jungle. Maybe next episode we'll get into a topic which I really wanted to do a long time ago, and I did it about 2 or 3 times, and for some reason it didn't record properly. But yeah, next week I'm going to get into a nightmarish cryptid, as well as answering some listener questions, topics, and cool stories. So see you then.